So let me just very quickly try to demystify SAT prep for you. Because if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you're a student who's been in the following situation. You are currently in 11th grade or maybe 12th grade, or you might be going into one of those right now. It might be the summer when you're watching this video. And you're looking at the SAT and you know this is one of the biggest obstacles in front of you right now. And it's such a big obstacle because maybe you've taken it a few times before, maybe you've struggled on it before, but you know you need this test to work out to either get into the college that you want to go to, or to get the necessary scholarships that you need to even be able to attend the colleges you want to go to in the first place. Not to mention the fact that, even if you don't want to admit it, you probably also just want the ability to brag to your friends, your family, tell them how you got a good SAT score. And trust me, it is somewhat fun to do that. So that's also a somewhat valid reason to try to get a high SAT score. But no matter what you try doing, it just is not working right now. You are watching all these videos, you are doing all this work, and it just feels like nothing is actually sticking in terms of improving your score. And it feels like this huge, unbelievable thing that's just like absolutely destroying your life right now. It's stressful, it's hard, you're not sure what to do, you're not sure if this is actually going to work out at all. And so now you're watching this video and you're trying to find some kind of answers here. The big thing though that you have to understand is that this is not a good frame of mind to be in the first place. Now, if you just think to yourself for a second about like two people, let's say you have one person who is very chill, very relaxed, who doesn't have too much chaos in their life right now. Then we have another person here who's had a very, very stressful last couple of weeks. Maybe this person has lost their job. Maybe their girlfriend, boyfriend cheated on them. Maybe they lost a bunch of money, did something bad. They are facing a bunch of struggles right now, facing something really bad in their life. And you're trying to think which one of these people is going to make the better decisions about what to do next in their life. It's pretty obvious. This person is almost always going to outshine this person because this person is probably going to be making decisions based off of desperation, going to be making decisions based off emotion. They're not sure what to do. They're sad, they're depressed, they're angry, all these different things. Whereas this person has the ability to just very clearly think, okay, this is what I need to do. That's what I need to do. And let me just focus on this. And here's the thing. I'm not asking you to become this person right away. What I'm instead going to ask you to do is use the stuff in this video because what I'm about to do is try to break down what actually goes into SAT prep. And so rather than feeling like it has to be this huge mess of all this stuff, this huge, complicated, unbelievable process, I want to simplify it so it feels like a much simpler thing with just a few key steps you need to focus on to get to your goal score. If you want to know why you should trust me, I have personally scored a 1530 on the SAT with a 1550 super score. I've helped hundreds of students improve their SAT scores already, and my goal is to make this channel you're watching right now the best free online SAT YouTube channel. Here's what we need to do first. We need to change what you are thinking when you think of SAT prep. Right now, this is probably how you are viewing the SAT. Your goal is to improve your SAT. That is your goal. Every day when you're studying for the SAT, the goal you say to yourself is that I'm trying to improve your SAT score. You tell your friends, your family, that's what I'm trying to do today, improve my SAT score. And in your mind, that's just what you're thinking to yourself. But there's a very, very big problem if this is your goal right now. It should be pretty obvious. Nobody knows what this means. If I said I want to improve my SAT score, I'm probably going to be doing different things from what you are trying to do when you improve your SAT score. There's no clear set thing. There's no action you can do on the computer right now that is literally called improving your SAT score. You can study, you can do practice problems, you can watch YouTube videos, but improving your SAT score, that's just a vague thing that could mean literally anything. And so a lot of students, they tell me they're studying or they tell me they're practicing, but all of those different words are vague, they're confusing. It's like if I said I want to make money, if I said I wanted to improve my life, like very good sentiments, but very bad execution because we have no idea what any of these different phrases mean. So I want you to take that out of your vocabulary. Instead, what I want you to do is start thinking about the key actions for this. A really good example of this, a good business YouTuber that you may have seen before, actually you almost definitely seen this guy because he's very popular, Alex Hormozi. And one thing that Alex Hormozi once said in one of his videos, and this is something that really stood out to me, is this idea of building skills. You may think that somebody just has some good skill, like maybe they're a good painter, maybe they're a good web developer, maybe they're a good coder, maybe they're a good business person, maybe they're a good politician. But when you say those skills, it's always kind of vague what is really going on when we say that. Like, I want you to think for a second, what if we were to ask like some very experienced business person, like let's say Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, And let's say we asked them to start a new business, and it was in some specific field, like maybe AI, maybe something in like healthcare, maybe something in like, I don't know, robotics, something big field right now. And we told them, hey, start a business in this field selling this product. If you went up to one of those people, they probably would just immediately, be able to start that business, start working on it, and get it off the ground. Obviously, you probably would have to convince them a lot because they probably don't want to do that. But if you were able to convince them, it'd be pretty simple for them. The reason why, though, is because they have so much skill already built up. They've started multiple businesses before, so obviously starting a new one is not going to feel that complicated. They know what starting a business includes, so they can very easily replicate it. But now let me ask you, what if we told that same thing, the exact same goal, but we told it to like some 18-year-old person who has, weird neck on that person, but some 18-year-old person who has never started a business before, has literally no experience with any of this stuff. Maybe they don't even know what business really means. And we said, okay, you go start a healthcare business or start an AI business. Obviously, this 18-year-old is not going to know anything about what to do. They might watch some random YouTube videos. They might use Claude for a bit. They might search random stuff up online. They might, pretend like they're being productive, but not really. They might read a book. They will have no idea what they actually need to do to start this business and take it off the ground just because they have no skill. They have never done it before. But what if we made it a bit simpler for this person? What if we literally told them, okay, I want you to go online and search this thing up about the market and find this specific piece of information, and with that develop this exact plan with like these key items and all this stuff. Or if you want to make it even simpler, you could just say, hey, I want you to use Claude and have it develop a market research plan with these things included, and use Whisperflow and make it easier to talk and do all these different things. Yes, it may be a bunch of stuff they'll have to do. It may be kind of overwhelming. But at the very least, they will know step by step, okay, step 1, I do this. Step 2, I do this. Step 3, I do this. Step 4, I do this. And if any of those steps don't make sense, you can break it down even further. Like, let's say they don't even know how to use a computer. Let's say they've never used a computer before. You could say, okay, step 1, go to a MacBook Air. Step 2, open up the MacBook Air. Step 3, press the power button on the MacBook Air. It can even be that ultra simple, ultra basic level of detail. Whatever they currently need, whatever skill level they currently are at. And so with your SAT prep right now, the big problem is that you're telling yourself you want to improve your SAT. You don't actually know what those individual steps are. And if you do know what those individual steps are, they might even be wrong. But that's a separate point from this. First, you need to figure out what steps you're going to actually do and then execute on them. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, what steps should I take? Which action should I take? Like, if I'm this 18-year-old now, how do I know if this 4-step process is better than this 4-step process, or if there's something else I'm completely missing, or something else, or some other like third thing, or like a million other different things? Well, the key thing you have to remember to yourself is this. And this is actually a quote from Alexander Hamilton. Yes, the one who was on the musical, the one who was on the $10 bill in the United States. And what he said one time is, I don't remember the exact quote, but basically something along the lines, it's better to focus all of your energy on one plan than to waste all of your energy trying to figure out which plan is best. So what this literally means is it would be much better for you to just take this 4-step process and do it rather than to spend all your time trying to figure out which 4-step process is the best. It's better to just pick something and go with it than to waste all this extra time. Another good example I heard for this one time, this is from another YouTuber who makes content on test prep, not the SAT, but the MCAT, which is a different test. I'll maybe even shout out the video in the description below. But basically, they use this example, like, say you're trying to find a restaurant with your friends. And let's say you go to the restaurant and they say, okay, it's going to be a 30-minute wait. And you think to yourself, like, 30 minutes, like, I don't want to wait 30 minutes for this restaurant. And so you think to yourself, okay, let's go to a different restaurant. They'll probably be better. But say you're like in a really busy town and then you go to them and now they say, okay, it's going to be an hour wait. So you can see here, it would have been much better for you to just have stayed with the 30-minute wait and just waited that 30 minutes rather than going to this other restaurant, which is actually even worse than the first one. You know the 30 minutes is going to be 30 minutes and it's not going to be any longer than that. This, you don't even know how long. It could be an hour, it could be 2 hours, it could be 3 hours. Yes, it could be less, but chances are you're just better off with the thing you know is going to happen with this kind of extra level of certainty. That's just another example of this. But okay, let me actually get into what this means. Let me break down what process you should use and what kind of things you should be thinking about when you develop your SAT prep. So really the key thing you have to look at is this here. What this is all the questions you're going to take on the SAT. Like, this is the SAT. This is reading and writing module 1, module 2, math 1, math 2. That is all the questions. And so when you look at something like this, you realize there are only 2 things you really need to maximize. You need to maximize your accuracy on the questions, and you need to maximize your speed when doing the test. And both of these are definitely important. You need to maximize your accuracy because if you don't maximize your accuracy, you might just get every single question wrong, but finish the test in like 15 minutes. Not really the best scenario. But if you only focus on your accuracy and don't maximize your speed at all, you might get every single question right, but you might only get to like this question, and then you miss all these other ones at the end of the test. So both of these are definitely very important, and these are the two things, and really the only two things you have to maximize. If there was a student who literally could be perfect at both of these two things, I mean literally perfect, they would be guaranteed to get a 1600 every single time. Obviously, even I'm not at that level yet because I haven't fully mastered the speed aspect of things, and maybe a couple of accuracy stuff as shown by my score above. But if you literally did have a student like that, this is the score that they'd be getting because there's literally nothing else that would be holding back from a higher score. So the next question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we do these two things? The way I kind of look at it is this movie that you may have seen before called Moneyball. In case you're not familiar with the story of this movie, we have Brad Pitt here, and he owns a baseball team, or I guess he's like the coach for a baseball team, and he really wants to make this team very good. Like, their team is struggling a lot right now. They're not in the best in their league, and they just need some way to actually get back on top for where they should be. And so all of his coaches are saying like, okay, we need to just like try to do the best with what we got. We got to just see how can we maximize what we currently have. But he takes a completely different approach. What he does is he hires this other guy, played by Jonah Hill, as we can see over here, and he basically gives him this like formula for how to maximize his baseball team. Like, he literally finds the exact numbers for every single player. So he's like, this player has like a 30 in this area and like a 50 in this area, so you should maximize them over this other player that has this in area and this in that other area. And keep in mind, like, they only have a set number of players to even go for. So it's not like they can just like choose the very best players in the world. They have to like do what they can with players that actually aren't even that good in many respects, but it's just mathematically they're trying to prove that these players are the best possible ones they can choose. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie yet and if you want to, they do end up succeeding with this idea. They end up going very well. It's a little bit difficult at first, but eventually they get to the point where like, yes, they are actually performing very, very well. The reason why I go into all this detail is this is the way I want you to view this. What is the way that we can just literally maximize both of our stats in the accuracy domain and also in the speed domain? Well, let's first talk about accuracy because this is definitely the most key element of the test. So the first thing you really need to do to maximize this is obviously learn all the different major skills in the first place. Now again, I want to go in a bit more in depth than just that because that is way too vague. But you can basically think of it like this. What are the key things that appear again and again in all of these different SAT questions? Like, for example, in reading and writing, at least like 5 of these questions are going to be on grammar. So like that's a big thing. And then many of these questions, like 10 plus, are going to be on reading passage comprehension. So that's going to be a very big thing as well. And then several of these questions are going to be on vocab. So that might be an important thing to master as well. There are a few other like smaller concepts in there as well. Like we have transitions, student notes, but like these are the main things that appear again and again on the test there. So that's the highest leverage stuff. If you're trying to really maximize our accuracy as much as possible, yes, we might miss a few things in some of these other niche concepts, but those are the key things we have to focus on. For math, the major concepts obviously are Desmos. There's a pretty good chance you might be able to use Desmos in some respect on every single question of the test, or at least a very high number of the questions on the test. So Desmos is a very key aspect. But in addition to that, there are some other key things you should focus on as well. Like, for example, you should understand in a basic sense how quadratics work, because that's probably going to appear on several of these questions throughout the test. You should also understand basics on how right triangles and angles work, because that's probably going to appear for many, or at least a few of these questions as well. So those are the major things for the math section. And if you want to know how to get those core skills, it really just comes down to watching good quality content on them and then doing a decent amount of practice with what you watch. This is like pretty simple. Like, there's not really much more to it because you just need to understand the information, understand the content, watch somebody do it for the first time so you know what you're even doing, and then practice on it so you'll be able to actually apply it when you get to the SAT. So any of these things I just mentioned here, you can find plenty of videos online about it. You can use my course with the link in the description. Anything you want to do, just get the content and then practice on it very heavily. And I know I'm making this sound like way too simple, but in many ways it actually is this simple. Like, many SAT tutors that you may see online may make it sound like it's so much more complicated than this, but for the basics, this is literally the only two things you have to do. And if you are hearing that there's anything else, they probably are just trying to trick you or trying to get you to buy something or some other factor like that. Like, these are the two things for sure. Okay, but let's say you master this. What are you supposed to do after that? So you have all these questions here, and maybe you have now perfected or at least gotten a lot better at some of these major sections of the test, like I was telling you before. But what about all those other questions? Like, what about these questions in the middle, or these questions in the middle, or these at the end? How do you make sure that you also master those as well? Well, the best way to think about this now is kind of like as if you are shooting a target at a dartboard. When you have a dartboard, it has all these kind of rings, and you're trying to shoot it basically in the center of the dartboard. That's where you want your dart to land. Every single time you shoot at the dartboard, you maybe make a mistake, you maybe don't get exactly at the middle of the board, but then you know some way that you should be changing your darts to make them a bit better. So for example, say you always shoot at the dartboard and it always ends a little bit left of where the target is. You always know then, okay, let me shoot a little bit more to the right, so that way I'll be having a higher and higher chance of getting there. So maybe a little more to the right, a little more to the right, and then you finally get the bullseye. So with every single additional dart, you kind of see another thing that was going wrong and another thing to improve. And this is the way to think about it with these other questions. You have the ability to do many SAT practice questions because there are so many resources online now. And as you do these questions, every single time you get one wrong, you know one more thing not to do. You know one more thing to improve, to fix, so you can actually get a higher score, and so you cannot miss more questions than you are right now. And in fact, this is really the only reason you would even do SAT practice in the first place. Like, think about it. If this was not why you're practicing for the SAT, there is not even any reason why you would do any practice problems or practice tests in the first place. You would just, maybe do the skill review and then immediately go on to the test. There would be nothing in between that. But we all can acknowledge that this is what you're supposed to do, so that's why we do practice problems. So what I want you to do is do SAT practice questions and do quite a bit of them. And then every single time you get one wrong, follow through this exact process that I'm showing on the screen here. This is a process that I have told a lot of students before. I call it the loop strategy. And the reason why I call it the loop strategy is because basically the way it works is every single time you make a mistake, aka you go down in the loop, you actually improve on that mistake so you don't make the same exact mistake again. This is actually a strategy that I kind of borrowed from this famous billionaire investor guy named Ray Dalio. And he would always talk about how in his companies, he would, whenever he made a mistake, always really in-depth analyze that mistake to make sure that he doesn't make that same mistake again, so he doesn't lose like millions of dollars again. And so you can do the same thing with the SAT. The way the strategy is built is to make it so every single time you make a mistake, it very heavily reduces the chances of you making that same exact mistake again. For math, you follow this exact process. First, you redo the problem. If it is right, you move on. If it is wrong, you learn how to do the problem correctly, like again with courses or with videos online. Then you redo the problem, and then finally do one more problem in the same problem type. This is probably the most important step, just because this is how you actually improve. If you just know how to do one problem very well, that's not going to help you on the SAT because you probably won't see that exact same problem again. What you need to be good at is the skill and the concepts behind the problem so that we can replicate it when you come to test day. And then finally you can move on again. For reading and writing, you determine the reason for the mistake, you determine how to fix the problem, you do one more problem in the same problem type, and then finally you move on after that. Now, if you want a full spreadsheet for keeping track of this process, I actually have it in my Skool community Mission 1400 Plus, which you can join for free with the link in the description below. There's a 7-day free trial, but you can just get this, and I guess you could copy and paste it so you don't have to stay in the community if you don't want to. So you can get this and you can use this so you can follow this exact method and never make a mistake. And the way I think of it at this point is it's kind of like you're cleaning a dirty room. Like, imagine you have a room with all this stuff on it. And if you ever had to clean a dirty room before, which I assume you probably have unless you have like a maid or something, you know the process of like taking all the stuff out of the room. Like, you feel like every single time you take something out, you're making a bit more progress. And then eventually, once you remove every dirty item, you just have a clean room. It just looks like a, nice, fresh, clean room. And so that's kind of like how it is with these SAT practice questions. Every single time you get a question incorrect, it's like you're taking one dirty item out of the room. You're taking one mistake that you were going to make on the real SAT out, so you're not going to make that same mistake again. And you just do this process again and again and again until finally you have a very clean room, aka you have a very high accuracy on the SAT. Now, you may discover at certain points in this process that you're not doing these questions correctly. Like, for example, maybe you discover that every single time you do a reading passage question, no matter what you do, you still are getting them wrong, and just like feels really frustrating. If you encounter a situation like that, that is just an indication to go back to the skill review. Chances are, and not even really chances, like there's almost guaranteed for this to be the case if you really are getting almost every question wrong in that category, you are missing up on some important skill, some important part of the process that you needed for this problem. For example, with those passage questions, there is a 3-step process that I always recommend for every student as they're doing SAT passage questions. I cover it on the other video on the channel, I think on the first video uploaded on this YouTube channel, so you can watch that if you want to see the exact process. But it's like, if you're not using this 3-step process that I say there, you are always going to struggle with passage questions. The way you can think about that is kind of like, say you are trying to learn how to tie a tie for the first time. And you learn this way to tie, but it's actually like completely bad. Like you tie the tie completely like backwards and it's like completely messed up and it's like all this weird stuff. If you just do that method again and again, all you're going to get is really, really good at not tying a tie or tying it really badly. In fact, if you do it like a million times, you'd be basically a pro at tying it badly. Like you could teach anybody how to tie badly. You could always go into your board meetings with like terrible ties. That is what you would get. You would not get suddenly really good at tying a tie just because you're doing it a million times. And so with the SAT, if you're doing a question badly, you are always going to struggle on it no matter what you do. So that's the important thing to avoid as well. And this can happen as well with the Desmos stuff I was talking about above. If you're always doing questions without using Desmos or using Desmos poorly or anything else like that, it is always going to be a struggle. And so this would be another case where you'd want to go back to the skill review and make sure to check on that to avoid making the same thing again. And the goal here is now just to rinse and repeat this process as much as you can until you really are closing all of the gaps here. Take as many dirty items out of your room as I showed over here and try to make it so you are just improving your SAT again and again with every single practice test that you take. It may not always be linear. Like, trust me, there are definitely going to be cases where like you take a practice test and maybe you score even worse than what you did before, or maybe you score about the same. The idea is that eventually it is going to start seeing very massive improvement. And kind of the thing you have to keep in mind is that this process is going to feel in many ways kind of exponential. You may think that it's going to be extremely linear, like, you just like do some more practice and like you suddenly get better and better and better. And it's like perfect, linear every single time you do practice problems, you get a bit better. But in actuality, it's going to be probably more like this, more like exponential. At first, it's going to be very, very low rates of improvement because you're just trying to like figure everything out for the first time. You're like being thrusted into this brand new environment that you have no experience with, and you're trying to just figure out these complex different topics. But eventually, it'll start making more and more sense in your mind. You start piecing it together more and more, and eventually you'll start actually improving exponentially fast. You'll start improving even further than you would have been improving if you're just going in a linear fashion alone. But you only get that once you do enough of this process. If you're just doing it for like 3 days in a row, you are not going to be seeing this massive improvement. This takes like weeks of actually going through this process. So that's the key thing you have to understand here. And now I've talked all about this accuracy element of things. What about the speed element? That's probably what you kind of are waiting for throughout this entire video. You're waiting, what is he going to say on how to improve your speed for these questions? Well, to be honest with you, there's one key thing that you really need to understand. And this is an analogy I give to a lot of students. Imagine you have somebody who is kind of like out of shape. Like, let's say they kind of need to be going to the gym. So you can tell my stick figures, they typically are a bit more sticked than this, I guess you could say. This person should probably go to the gym. And, maybe I should go to the gym as well. But let's say this person says to you that, no, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to get too big. I guess they're already kind of big, but like, I don't want to get too big in a muscular sense. Like, I don't want to be like one of those jacked people who are like bodybuilder type person. That's not for me. That's not the body type I want. What any logical, rational person would say to this person is like, bro, you're literally out of shape. You literally like need to lose weight or whatever. Your problem right now is not being too muscular. That's literally not the problem that you need to be focusing on right now at all. Like that you're just kind of crazy for thinking that you're going to get too big and then that's your big problem here. Because, yeah, like, obviously, like, you're not just going to suddenly get too big. In case you don't know how the gym works, like, this is something that, again, like the SAT, you only are going to get, like, jacked, you're only going to get huge muscularly if you are doing it every single day and doing a ton of work every single day in the gym. If you're just going for, like, the few days for the first time, you're not probably going to see any progress in those first few days. And so this is how I view speed on the SAT. I've had so many students who come to me and they're saying like, bro, I'm at like an 1100 right now. And the big problem that is just hurting me so much is that I keep running out of time on the SAT. And that's the thing that's like holding me back from a higher score. If I could just get through every single question a bit faster, I know I would be getting like a 1500. And the thing I have to tell them is like, I'm sorry, bro, but this is not your problem right now. You're kind of like that person who's saying you were worried about getting too big. Your problem right now is accuracy. Your problem is that you're just getting questions wrong because you don't know how to be doing them. You're not getting 1100 just because you're running out of time on the test. I can guarantee you that that's the case. You're getting like 1100 because you're just not doing these questions right in the first place. And so your job right now should be focusing on accuracy, not speed. And the reason why this also is really good is because once you focus on accuracy enough, it is definitely going to be the case that the speed will, in a way, kind of come naturally. I've told many students this before, but it's kind of like, think about it like a doctor. When you have a doctor can give a diagnosis extremely quickly. If you've ever been to a doctor, which I assume you have, they can just like look at you like 30 seconds and be like, okay, this is your problem. This is your disease, or this is the thing you're currently experiencing. You have a cold, you have an infection, you have like a bruise or like whatever. And they just said like, okay, this is the problem. They don't need to spend like 1 hour thinking about whatever ailment is currently you're experiencing. And it's not because they are like just super fast, supposedly. It's just because they understand the stuff unbelievably well. For the doctor, it's basically like they have such a high accuracy that the speed does just kind of come naturally. Like they just naturally are fast because they're so good at it as well. Think about anything that you're good at right now in your life. Like it could even just be something stupid. Like say you're talking about like scrolling on Instagram. You can probably go on Instagram maybe within like, I don't know, 5 seconds. Could it be as low as 5 seconds from me saying this? Like even try it right now. If you have your phone next to you, like go on Instagram right now and see how long it takes you. I assume it's going to be very, very fast, assuming you're pretty addicted to Instagram. And it's not because you ever did like some kind of timed Instagram practice or something crazy like that. It's just because you have done it so many times. Like you are so experienced with the act of going on Instagram that you can just do it very fast. So the accuracy is 100% what you really do need to be focusing on right now, and the speed likely will come later. If it does not come though, like for example, let's say you are at like the 1400 range and you're still saying, okay, time is really destroying me, or if you're at 1500 plus and you're like, time is just really hurting me now. The thing I would say here is that may be a matter of form. You can think again, kind of like an athlete. Like, the FIFA World Cup is really big right now. Let's imagine you're a soccer player, or football if you're not inside the US. Like, let's say you have a very good soccer player like Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe. I'll be honest, I don't really watch soccer that much. I'm not really a big World Cup fan. But I'm guessing that these really good soccer players, it's not that they just like figured out their own unbelievable way of playing soccer. It's not like they just are like naturally gifted. I mean, sure, they probably do have a lot of natural talent, but it's also that they just are doing soccer in the right way. They probably had a very standard, very strong way of kicking the ball. They have a good way of, navigating through the field, analyzing the game, shooting goals. Their form is very, very good. And so if you put a player like Messi and forced him to not play soccer the right way, he'd probably still be okay. He'd probably still be like a really good player, but he probably would not be nearly as good. And so to avoid this, you just need to master the form. For the SAT, what this looks like is, again, mastering the process. Like the 3-step process for passage questions, or the exact steps that I say for Desmos questions, or the exact steps that I say for specific geometry and trigonometry questions. You have to make sure that you're doing them well. If you are not doing them well, it is always going to be a struggle. You're always going to be having difficulty on them, and your speed probably never will improve. But if you are approaching them correctly, your speed will naturally improve as you do more and more questions and get better at the test. So now you know, rather than this unbelievably vague thing of like improving your SAT, like maybe you started with thinking at the beginning of this video, now you know a very clear, very applicable process that you can use to improve your score. Master the skills, and then practice them to avoid any mistakes. It sounds painfully simple. It sounds so simple that you may not even think that this would really work. But I know this works because I've seen students do it before. This is how I myself improved my SAT score. And most importantly, this is just how it makes sense. When you look at the SAT, when you try to approach it from a more mathematical way, there's no reason why this would not work unless you're doing it like completely terribly. And so I'm going to have comments on this video, I'm sure, with people saying like, hey, I'm currently at an 1100. I'm trying to get to like a 1500. Like, how am I supposed to do this? This video is the way. This video is exactly what I would tell you. So before you leave a comment like that, make sure you're actually watching the video, make sure you're applying it, because honestly, probably a lot of you guys are going to watch this video and not use it. I know how SAT YouTube content works. You guys are not going to do what I said in this video. Like, I can guarantee a very high percentage, maybe like 90+%, are not going to do anything I said in this video or not change their way at all. Try to be in the 10% that actually does and see what happens. But I will say, if you have any questions on some of the more specific stuff, if there's like a specific thing that you're struggling with, a specific concept, a specific strategy, anything like that you do want help with, I can definitely help you with that as well. Just leave a comment. I will get back to you and let you know what I think. Real quick before you go, if you want one-on-one support from me to help you through this process, check out Mission 1400 Plus with the link in description below. What this is my full community guiding you through every step of the process that I discussed in this video itself. If you join this community, you're going to get my full SAT math course and full reading and writing course, so all of the content you need, over 28,000 practice problems through Onico, so all the practice that you need, the loop strategy, and also a system that actually rewards you for studying each day with one-on-one tutoring with me and other awesome rewards. It's a full system for trying out everything in this video. You also have access to a free trial for 7 days, so no risk over those 7 days with the link right here. This is not your regular run-of-the-mill SAT course. I actually help every single student in here as much as I can personally to help them, and I respond to every single post people make in this community. We're a pretty tight-knit group of people in here, and I'm sure that if you get in here, you will improve your SAT score. That is it for the video. I hope this genuinely was able to help you. If it was, let me know in the comments, and I can make more videos like this in the future. Genuinely is trying to make this the most valuable SAT content that I can. Anyways, good luck on your next SAT. Hope this applied, and make sure to always stay Gucci.